Stop. Whatever you're doing right now, stop and listen. Something happened to you in the last 7 months that no one has been able to explain. You felt a deep silence, an absence of answers that felt like abandonment. But that was actually protection. You have been carrying a quiet anguish, feeling as if your voice had been placed in an echo chamber where nothing returns. You looked around and saw people who seemed to be moving forward while you seem frozen in time, waiting for a sign that's taking too long to come. I came here to tell you that this 7-month period was not a punishment. It was a rigorous preparation. The silence you faced is not God's absence. It is the preparation so that your voice, when it finally echoes, carries a weight it would never have had if it had emerged too early. This Thursday, something is going to shift in your frequency. You will feel a clarity you haven't felt since the beginning of this year. By the end of this conversation, you will understand exactly why your path was blocked so many times, and you will recognize the authority that is being handed to you. You will grasp that the 7-month silence was the time needed to clear out what wasn't yours, so that what is truly yours can finally surface. You are not being left behind. You are being positioned. The purpose of this waiting period was to ensure that when you speak, the world will have no choice but to stop and listen. Your voice, which was held back for so long, will begin to echo far beyond anything you can imagine right now. Many of you have been living with a sense of invisibility. You do what is right, you maintain your integrity, you serve with dedication, and still the door seems locked from the inside. This symptom of feeling forgotten is the most common diagnosis among those who are about to be elevated. It is a necessary spiritual calibration. Imagine you are being adjusted to bear a much greater load of energy and responsibility than you carry today. If the door had opened earlier, you would not have had the maturity, the emotional structure, or the clarity of purpose to sustain what was coming next. Attention! You need to prepare yourself now. I have prepared material for those who doubt their own calling from God and still do not have confirmation. Are you one of the chosen? We'll give you that clarity. These are the 7 signs of the language of the calling, marks of God in the story of every chosen one, so you can reread your story and recognize the purpose sealed over you before the foundation of the world. Stop calling coincidence what is actually a calling. Stop silencing the sacred restlessness. Stop postponing the answer you feel. Your window is closing, and a chosen one who does not recognize the calling does not walk in purpose. More than 10,000 people have already read the 7 signs and received the conviction they had been seeking for years. They were just like you. They felt something no one understood. They lived in silent doubt, and they discovered it was real. And it had a name. The offer is open only this month. Access the link in the pinned comment now, before doubt steals another year from your calling. You are being calibrated. Your current exhaustion is not the result of failure. It is the result of a resistance that was broken so that a new flow could enter. You are a vessel that had to be emptied of all other people's expectations so that it could be filled with your own truth. If this diagnosis has touched the wound you've been hiding, if you feel that your spirit recognized the truth behind this long 7-month winter, pay attention now. There is a movement of alignment that begins exactly where you are. The act of typing these 3 numbers is your way of saying yes to what is being restored in you. The number 888 represents overflow and total alignment between who you are and what you came here to do. It is your declaration that you accept the calibration process. Type 888 and then come back to me immediately, because what we are about to uncover is the secret of how this silence became the foundation of your new authority. Now think of your life as a great tree that had to be pruned back to the trunk. For 7 months, you saw no new leaves, you saw no fruit, you saw nothing but what looked like dry wood. But underground, your root was growing to a depth you couldn't measure. You were being anchored. The reason you felt so alone is that if someone had been nearby, they would have tried to convince you to sprout too early. They would have tried to make you offer shade when you still needed deep nourishment. You were preserved. That isolation was the fence that protected your soil while your root fastened itself in the right place. Now that the root has reached a water table that never dries up, the growth will no longer be slow. It will be sudden and visible. You were not being pruned to die. You were being prepared to become a tree that sustains others. And that change begins now, where your voice reclaims the place of command that was reserved for you before this cycle even started. What you felt as a desert was your gestation chamber. Nothing was lost. Everything was kept. What you understood as an absence of life was, in truth, the densest protection you have ever received. Pruning is a process that looks violent to an outside observer. It removes what seems beautiful, removes what seems like part of you, but the gardener knows that without the removal of the excess, the energy would never reach the center. For 7 months, you were kept away from the stages, away from the lights, away from the applause, and even away from the understanding of those who walked beside you. That didn't happen because of a lack of ability, but because of an excess of purpose. If you had been exposed earlier, your message would have been mixed with the noise of the world and lost in the surface of trivial things. You needed to be silent. You needed to be invisible. The message you carry is too heavy to be sustained by a character still seeking validation from others. Breathe deeply with me and feel the weight of this relief. The silence was not a punishment. The silence was a bunker. It was the place where your voice was refined, so that when it finally sounded again, it would not be just one sound among many, but a frequency that cuts through the fog. Your waiting was not wasted time. It was a time of gestation. A seed that is buried is not being forgotten by the earth. It is being absorbed, enveloped, and prepared to break through the surface. And that is exactly what is about to happen. The time to stay hidden is over. The structure built in the dark, that foundation no one saw, is the only thing that will allow you to sustain the weight of what is coming. When others start looking at you and asking where such authority came from, you will know it did not come from a course, a book, or a lucky moment. It came from 7 months of obedience to silence. Do not let this revelation float loose. The act of typing these 3 words makes the recognition a permanent mark on your spiritual record. You are declaring that the period of protection is over and that your face is now turned toward the light. Type "steady your spirit" and come back to me immediately, because we need to talk about what happens when the silence breaks. The transition from the gestation phase to the influence phase is a move most people fear. For months, you got used to the little, the quiet, the near anonymity, but now the horizon has begun to expand. You will feel an urgency to speak, to act, and to take a stand where before you only observed. Do not try to retreat back into the comfort of being forgotten. What is happening now is not an accident along the way. It is your entry into the harvest time. Your voice will no longer only echo off the walls of your own room. It will begin to reverberate in places you have never physically been. This is the result of your endurance through the winter. Influence is the natural byproduct of someone who accepted being pruned without complaining. You now possess an authority born from the absence of ego, and it is this authority that will attract the right people, the right projects, and the opportunities that have been saved for you all this time. What was hidden under the soil of your life now begins to break the surface with a force no one can stop. You are no longer being gestated, you are being revealed to the world. If you feel that what has been revealed here is not just information, but a testimony to what your spirit was already whispering in the loneliest early hours, let your like be your wordless amen. We are not talking about numbers or counting, but about a silent recognition among those who know that the desert is not a place of abandonment, but a place of encounter. When you signal that wordless amen, you are simply affirming before the invisible that the truth has been heard, the diagnosis has been accepted, and the healing that comes through revelation has already begun to work in your depths. It is a sacred agreement, a seal you place on what has been named without needing to explain anything to anyone. Just honor what your inner being recognized as genuine. Right now, as you process this transition, there is someone who came to your mind, maybe a friend, a family member, or someone you walked with for a long time but now seems distant. That person is also going through this process of silencing. Look at their characteristics. They are clearly tired, living in an exhaustion that does not come from physical effort, but from an internal struggle to keep faith while everything around seems stagnant. They are someone who is secretly searching, someone who walks around with a question stuck in their throat that no one else can hear. That person's face appeared in your memory for a very specific reason. Do not keep what you have received only for yourself. Send this message to them, not as advice, not as a content suggestion, but as a delivery from someone who recognizes that their preparation time is also coming to an end. You are functioning as a channel of confirmation for someone who, without this word, might give up waiting for their own spring. What happens from now requires you to take your position firmly. There is no more room for the timidity of someone who does not know the value of what they carry. Before we move on to the practical steps of your new season, I need you to steady your identity so that it is not shaken when the exposure begins. Do not do this as a hope, not as a vague wish. Do it as a final confirmation, a decree that plants your foot on the ground where you now begin to walk. The authority forged in the 7 months of silence does not belong to you by merit, but by commission. You are the carrier of a message that had to be gestated in the dark so that it could shine with intensity in the daylight. The act of typing these 3 words is your definitive commitment to the mission entrusted to you, sealing your entry into a season where your voice will finally reach the destination for which it was designed. You are committed to the truth that now lives in you. You are commissioned to be the lighthouse that guides others, still lost in the fog of waiting. You are sent to occupy the space that, though it was empty, always had your name written on it. Every step you take from now on will be supported by the invisible foundation built in obedience and silence. Your voice is no longer just an attempt to be heard. It is an echo of something far greater than your own story. What you carry is not yours to keep, it is yours to pour out. And now that you understand the nature of this process, realize that your walk has changed pace. Where there was once haste, now there is an unshakable certainty. Where there was once the fear of being forgotten, now there is the conviction that you were in truth protected by a purpose that never slept. Your life, from this Thursday onward, ceases to be a waiting and becomes a constant revelation, where every word you speak carries the weight of your journey and the clarity of your new vision. You are no longer fighting against the current. You are sailing on the river that was opened specifically so that your mission could thrive. Feel the solidity of this new ground under your feet. Feel the lightness of someone who no longer has to explain themselves, because the authority of what you carry speaks louder than any argument. Your time to bloom has come, and it will be witnessed by everyone who doubted that a root so deep could ever sustain a fruit so abundant. You have become the living proof that silence is not the end, but the prologue to a story the world is not yet ready to read. But you are ready to write with every attitude and every word that comes from now on. Right now, as you breathe in the weight of this new understanding, know that you are not alone in this crossing. All over the world, there are other men and women who, like you, were led into the desert of silence for months on end. They too felt the cold of loneliness, the fear of having been forgotten by heaven, and the agony of seeing their voices trapped in their throats while the world seemed to move on without them. You are part of an invisible movement, a network of souls who are being simultaneously drawn out of the cocoon of waiting to manifest the fullness of their calling. What happens to you this Thursday is a reflection of what is happening to this scattered collective, united by a common purpose that does not announce itself with banners or trumpets, but confirms itself in the steadiness of each step taken by those who understood the lesson of silence. You are the living proof that preparation happens far from the eyes, in the absolute intimacy of what only your spirit can understand. Feel this connection, this silent fellowship of hearts forged in the same furnace. You are not just isolated individuals on your own journeys. You are the architects of a new season, those who, by understanding the value of the process, become the natural guides for everyone still lost in the confusion of external noise. This harmony is not by chance, nor is it a coincidence. It is the recognition that although the journey seemed solitary, the final destination of this walk is the encounter with a collective purpose that now, at last, finds a voice through each one of you. You are now part of something that surpasses your own story, something that expands to reach lives you do not even know yet, lives that are waiting exactly for the message you gestated during these 7 months of quiet. The silence was not a punishment. It was the protection needed so that your message would not be corrupted by haste or the search for others' approval. Now that your voice echoes with the authority of someone who understood that the waiting was, in truth, your greatest school, you realize that the authority you carry is unquestionable. It is no longer about trying to convince anyone. It is about manifesting the truth that now overflows from the inside out. Your commitment is not to momentary success, but to the permanence of the impact you are destined to leave. Those who once doubted will now see the clarity of your new posture, and those who were lost will find in your voice the direction they need to also emerge from their own silence. Your life is a testimony, and your voice is the tool that, from today, will cut through the fog of uncertainty hanging over so many who have not yet understood that silence is the anteroom of authority. Do not rush to explain what you lived through, because the transformation that occurred in you speaks for itself without needing translation or defense. Just walk with the certainty of someone who knows exactly who they are and where they were sent. Your presence now brings order where there was chaos, brings light where there was the doubt of waiting. Everything cultivated in the months of darkness now becomes the unshakable foundation of your new reality. You are no longer at the starting point. You are on the shore of a new ocean, ready to sail with the security of someone who does not fear the waves, because they know their vessel was built to withstand any storm. Every word you speak from now on will carry the weight of this experience, and the world, even without understanding the origin, will feel the force of your conviction. The time of gestation is over, and the time of bearing fruit has begun, naturally, steadily, inevitably. And this Thursday, everything that was planted in the hidden begins to emerge with a force no one can stop. Keep your eyes on the horizon that has opened before you, and know that the moment you decide to take the next step, the path will reveal itself exactly as it needs to. You are ready, not because you acquired new techniques, but because you finally stripped away everything that kept your essence from being who you truly are. Authority is not something you seek. It is something you recognize after passing through the refining process that only silence can provide. You are now aligned, positioned, and ready for the harvest, knowing that every phase had its right time and that nothing was in vain. What you carry is the answer to questions many have not yet had the courage to ask. And as you move into your destined place, your life becomes a reference that even when everything seemed silent, the orchestra of your mission never stopped composing the melody that is now going to play throughout the territory assigned to you. Feel the weight of this responsibility, but also feel the peace of knowing that your strength does not come from yourself, but from the inexhaustible source that sustains your journey from the very first breath. Did you realize that the silence was not a punishment but a dome? For 7 months you felt as if your own voice had been placed in a velvet box, protected from the noise of the outside world so that you would not be corrupted by others' opinions while your essence was being rearranged. During that time, you felt the restlessness of someone who needs to speak but received the instruction, often silent, that it was not yet the moment. Now you understand that this confinement was necessary so that what you have to say would not be just another noise, but a frequency capable of altering the environment around you. 888 represents the perfect geometry of overflow, the moment when the reserve of energy you accumulated in the waiting becomes the source that will feed your new voice. Type 888, then come back to me quickly. The diagnosis you carried was that you had been forgotten, as if you had lost your place in line for opportunities. But the truth, the deepest layer you are beginning to glimpse now, is that you were not forgotten. You were reserved. Imagine a tree that, in order to grow, must first send roots down to a depth no one sees. While the surface was dry, your internal system was anchoring itself in a source that does not depend on passing rains. The pruning that happened in these months was not to reduce your stature, but to ensure that the fruit you will now produce has the integrity to bear the weight of what is coming. You felt the pain of the cut, the loneliness of the separation, but that was the only way to protect the seed you carry. If you had not been silenced, your content would have been diluted by external pressures, and what you are about to deliver would have lost its original impact. Your walk is no longer about trying to prove your ability to those who have no eyes to see your process. It is about understanding that, from today, you are no longer what you were before this pause. What happened to your voice is that it changed tone, changed intention, and now carries an authority you do not need to explain, only to exercise. Let this declaration steady your place in the new cycle. Type "I am ready," then return to me. You now enter the phase of exposure, not as a spectacle, but as a presence that brings order. What was once chaotic in your mind now organizes itself into absolute clarity. What was once an anxious search for validation from others has become an unshakable confidence in your own identity. You realize the fear of speaking has been replaced by the urgency to fulfill what was designed for you before you were even born. Don't try to speed up because of the delay you think you've had. Your timing was exactly what it needed to be for your foundation to be solid enough to support your rise. The influence you're going to exert won't come from gimmicks or calculated strategies. It will come from the magnetic force of someone who finally understands the weight of their own words. Your life is now living proof that silence is the anteroom of authority, and those who walk through that process with integrity don't need to ask permission to occupy the space that rightfully belongs to them. Every breath you take from now on must be aware of this new authority. You're no longer playing a game. You're carrying out a mission that was sealed inside you during these months of what felt like a wilderness. Let that certainty sink all the way down to the soles of your feet, anchoring your walk in the reality of what is unfolding as you move with the lightness of someone who knows the hardest part is already behind you. If you feel your influence is about to overflow, understand that your voice is no longer just a sound. It's a frequency that tunes the room you walk into. And if everything we've talked about here resonated with the truth you've held on to during this season, let your wordless amen be your like. It's not a metric, not a quest for algorithm approval. It's the quiet confirmation between what was said and what your spirit has already recognized as authentic. It's the seal that the message was delivered and your commitment confirmed. There's someone right now, at this very moment, whose face comes to your mind. Maybe it's that person who has been working tirelessly without seeing results. Someone carrying a silence similar to the one you lived through, or that friend who, like you, felt the world pull away as a form of divine protection. That person needs to hear what you've heard. Send this message to them, not as a casual suggestion, but as a necessary delivery. They are being prepared the same way, and this is your act of care, your way of ministering over the life of someone you love, making sure no one gets lost along the path of preparation. Before we close, let's seal what was established between us. Type the phrase, "I am the chosen one," in the comments below. Don't do it on impulse. Do it as the signature of a lifelong contract. The authority you carry today is not a human achievement. It is an assignment that was sealed inside you during the 7 months of wilderness. By typing those words, you are confirming that you accept the weight, the glory, and the responsibility of the new season that opens this Thursday. You are committed. You are commissioned. You are sent. At this moment, all over the world, other people are reaching exactly the same point of clarity, feeling the same chains break, and experiencing the same authority manifesting in their daily lives. You are part of a silent movement that doesn't need fanfare to be real, because what is born in secret is what remains standing when the storm passes. What has been revealed does not return empty. What has been understood now becomes the foundation of your new existence. It is sealed. Attention! You need to prepare yourself now. I have prepared material for those who doubt their own calling from God and still do not have confirmation. Are you one of the chosen? We'll give you that clarity. These are the 7 signs of the language of the calling, marks of God in the story of every chosen one, so you can reread your story and recognize the purpose sealed over you before the foundation of the world. Stop calling coincidence what is actually a calling. Stop silencing the sacred restlessness. Stop postponing the answer you feel. Your window is closing, and a chosen one who does not recognize the calling does not walk in purpose. More than 10,000 people have already read the 7 signs and received the conviction they had been seeking for years. They were just like you. They felt something no one understood. They lived in silent doubt, and they discovered it was real. And it had a name. The offer is open only this month. Access the link in the pinned comment now before doubt steals another year from your calling.